It was a typical Saturday evening in the quiet suburban corners of Fairfield, Connecticut. The air carried a gentle breeze, and the park at the edge of town buzzed with the warmth of family outings. Children's laughter rang out as soccer balls rolled across the field, while teens lounged on benches, headphones in, scrolling through their devices. Among them was 16-year-old Michael, sitting alone beneath the expansive shade of an old oak tree. Michael was the kind of kid who blended into the background, dressed that evening in a neatly tailored black suit, complete with a crisp white shirt and polished shoes. His demeanor was calm, his focus fixed on the worn pages of a book he had brought along. Nearby, his younger brother Jordan was wrapping up soccer practice, and Michael had promised their mom he'd wait to walk him home. The tranquility was disrupted when the unmistakable roar of motorcycles broke through the evening air. The deep rumbling echoed off the park's quiet surroundings, a sound that would usually fade as quickly as it arrived. But tonight, things were different. The bikers didn't ride past. Instead, they slowed, then stopped, parking their machines near the soccer field. 5 men dismounted, their heavy leather jackets and dark jeans sharply contrasting with the cheerful scene of families and children. These weren't casual riders. Their presence exuded an air of deliberate menace. They scanned the park with piercing stares, their eyes eventually landing on Michael, who, oblivious to their focus, continued reading his book. When Michael finally glanced up, the knot in his stomach tightened. The intensity of their gaze was unsettling. Though he wasn't the type to make assumptions, their deliberate scrutiny was hard to ignore. Resolute, Michael returned his attention to his book, silently willing himself to remain calm. But calm was fleeting when trouble lingered so close. The bikers didn't remain by their motorcycles for long. One of them, a stocky man with a shaved head, exchanged a wordless look with his companions before starting toward Michael. Flanked by 2 others, his heavy boots crunched against the gravel pathway as they closed the distance with purposeful strides. Michael felt their approach before he saw them fully. He raised his head, his gaze meeting theirs as the burly man halted a few feet away. His expression was cold, unreadable, but his intentions were clear. Michael set his book aside carefully, marking the page as his heart thudded steadily in his chest. His face, however, betrayed none of his unease. He recalled his mother's voice, always steady in moments of tension. "Never let them see you falter." "What are you doing here, kid?" the man asked, his voice rough and confrontational. Michael hesitated, his brow furrowing slightly in confusion. "Waiting for my brother," he replied, his tone polite but steady. The man smirked, exchanging glances with his buddies. "You don't exactly fit in around here," he said, his words laced with condescension. Michael's jaw clenched, but he kept his composure. "It's a public park," he countered, meeting the man's gaze without flinching. The biker's smirk faded, replaced by a look of irritation. "Got a sharp tongue, don't you?" he said, stepping closer. The other 2 subtly shifted their positions, forming a loose semicircle around Michael. Despite the park being dotted with families and kids, no one seemed to notice the tension brewing beneath the oak tree. Most eyes were fixed on the soccer field, where Jordan's practice was winding down. Michael quickly scanned the area, hoping for someone to notice the uneasy situation. But the bikers had chosen their moment well. Michael's instincts sharpened. Years of karate training had taught him to remain observant, to analyze before reacting. Discipline was key. Fighting wasn't the first course of action, it was the last. "Look," Michael said, his voice even and measured, "I'm not looking for trouble. I'm just here for my brother." The burly man's response was a low, mocking laugh. "Trouble? Who said anything about trouble?" he sneered, leaning in just enough to invade Michael's space. Michael could feel the weight of their stares, the silent challenge hanging in the air. His hands rested loosely on his knees, but he remained poised, ready to act if the situation escalated. The biker's taunt deepened, his voice dripping with mockery. "Maybe you should show us what you've got," he said, his companions chuckling darkly in the background. Michael didn't budge. His hands stayed where they were, his calm exterior unshaken, but his eyes stayed locked on the man in front of him, quietly assessing every movement, every shift in posture. These men weren't here for idle conversation. The burly man leaned in further, his shadow casting over Michael. "What's the matter, kid? You scared?" he said, his tone goading. Michael exhaled slowly, his mind steady. Fear wasn't the issue. The real question was time. How long before Jordan's practice ended? How long before someone noticed the brewing confrontation? "Leave him alone." The sudden shout broke through the tension like a snapped thread. Michael turned his head sharply, spotting Jordan standing a few yards away, his face flushed and damp with sweat from the game. "Jordan, stay back!" Michael called out firmly. The bikers shifted their attention, their grins widening as they eyed the younger boy. One of them pointed a gloved finger toward Jordan. "This your brother?" he asked, his tone dripping with mock amusement. "Maybe we should teach you both a lesson." Michael's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with determination. He rose to his feet, moving deliberately, his body instinctively falling into a balanced stance he'd practiced countless times in the dojo. "Don't touch him," Michael said, his voice steady but edged with a sharp warning. The burly man laughed, shaking his head. "Look at this tough guy," he said mockingly. Laughter rippled among the bikers, their mocking tones echoing across the park like a cruel chorus. Yet Michael didn't falter. His steady gaze remained fixed, his stance unmoving, and his silence carried a weight that none of them fully understood. It was unsettling, and the bikers felt it more than they cared to admit. "You're not going to do anything," one of them sneered, stepping closer. Michael finally spoke, his voice calm, deliberate, and unwavering. "You don't want to do this." The chuckles ceased, and a flicker of confusion crossed their faces. For a moment, the confidence in his words made them hesitate, but the pause was fleeting. The leader, the burly man, closed the gap with another step, raising his hand with the intent to shove Michael back. What followed happened in the blink of an eye, faster than any of them could process. The burly man's hand shot forward, aiming for Michael's shoulder, but before it could connect, Michael moved, fluid, precise, and calculated. He sidestepped effortlessly, his motion like a coiled spring being released. The man stumbled, caught off balance by the unexpected evasion. Michael didn't stop there. In one smooth motion, he stepped forward, his palm striking the man's wrist and twisting it away. A sharp grunt escaped the biker's lips as pain shot through his arm. He pulled back, clutching his wrist and glaring at Michael, fury flashing in his eyes. "What the?" the man began, but Michael cut him off. "I warned you," Michael said, his voice calm yet firm, his words carrying a weight that couldn't be ignored. Two of the other bikers rushed forward, their patience clearly exhausted. The first swung a wild punch, his inexperience evident in his reckless attack. Michael ducked effortlessly, his movements fluid and deliberate, honed by years of disciplined practice. With precision, he delivered a sharp kick to the man's knee, sending him crashing to the ground with a pained cry. The second biker hesitated, his confidence wavering as he watched his friend fall. That moment of indecision was all Michael needed. He pivoted smoothly, his heel connecting with the man's ribs in a powerful spinning kick. The impact knocked the air from the biker's lungs, and he staggered back, clutching his side in agony. By this point, the burly leader had recovered, his face flushed with rage. He charged at Michael, his fists swinging wildly in an attempt to overpower him through sheer brute force. But Michael didn't meet power with power. Instead, he relied on speed and agility, dodging each punch with practiced precision. The commotion hadn't gone unnoticed. A crowd began to gather at the edges of the park. Parents, children, and even soccer players paused to watch the unfolding drama. Someone had their phone out, the camera lens capturing every moment of the confrontation. The leader lunged again, this time reaching for Michael's lapel. But Michael was quicker. He twisted out of the man's grip and delivered a calculated strike to his solar plexus. The biker stumbled back, gasping for air as the wind was knocked out of him. The tough exterior he'd projected moments ago was crumbling under Michael's calm control. "Enough," Michael said, his voice ringing out clearly, commanding attention. His stance was firm but unthreatening, and his expression was resolute. "I don't want to hurt you. Walk away." For a brief moment, it seemed like the bikers might heed his words. The leader, wheezing and clutching his chest, glared at Michael with a mix of anger and disbelief. The two others remained on the ground, one cradling his injured knee, and the other nursing his ribs. The tension in the air was palpable, but Michael stood unwavering. Finally, the leader growled, "Let's go." He waved a hand at his companions, who struggled to their feet, muttering curses under their breath. They limped back to their bikes, their bruised pride evident in their slow, defeated movements. As their engines roared to life, the leader cast one last glare in Michael's direction. Pointing a finger at him, he spat, "This isn't over, kid." Then, with a rev of the throttle, the group disappeared into the distance. Michael remained still, his breathing steady as the sound of their motorcycles faded. Around him, murmurs of awe and admiration rippled through the crowd. Applause broke out, tentative at first, then growing louder. Jordan ran up to his brother, his face a mixture of fear and awe. "Michael, are you okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. Michael crouched down, placing a reassuring hand on Jordan's shoulder. "I'm fine," he said with a small, calm smile. "Let's head home." They walked in silence, the rhythmic sound of their footsteps on the pavement filling the space between them. Jordan kept stealing glances at his older brother, his mind racing with questions. Finally, he couldn't hold back any longer. "Michael," he began hesitantly, "how did you do all that? I mean, they were huge, and there were 3 of them." Michael chuckled softly, shaking his head. "It's not about size, Jordan," he explained. "It's about preparation, staying calm, and knowing when to act." Jordan frowned, his concern still lingering. "But what if they come back? That guy said it wasn't over." Michael stopped, turning to face his brother. "If they do, we'll deal with it," he said firmly. "But remember this, Jordan. What happened today wasn't about fighting. It was about standing up for ourselves. Violence is never the answer, unless there's no other choice." Jordan nodded slowly, processing his brother's words. Michael placed a hand on his shoulder, squeezing it gently. "It's not about proving strength," Michael continued. "It's about knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone take that from you." When they arrived home, their mom was waiting on the porch, arms crossed, and a worried expression etched on her face. "You're late," she said, her tone edged with concern. Michael hesitated, glancing at Jordan, who remained silent. "Something happened at the park," he admitted, choosing his words carefully. As he recounted the events, their mother's expression shifted from worry to pride. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but her eyes shimmered with emotion. "Michael," she said softly when he finished, "I'm proud of you for protecting your brother and yourself," his mother added, her voice softening as she looked at him with both pride and concern. "But promise me one thing, never take risks like that unless it's absolutely necessary." "I promise," Michael replied earnestly, and this time he truly meant it. That night, as Michael lay in bed, his mind replayed the events at the park, the echo of roaring engines, the bikers' aggression, the gathering crowd, and, most vividly, the parting words of the leader. "This ain't over, kid." But fear had no place in Michael's heart. He'd learned long ago that fear only held power if you allowed it to. Instead, what he felt was a quiet resolve, a sense of purpose that resonated deeply within him. The world wasn't always fair. Michael knew that much. Yet, moments like this were proof that courage, discipline, and a strong moral compass could make a difference. This experience, as intense and challenging as it had been, felt like more than just a test of his skills. It was a poignant reminder that standing up against wrongdoing, no matter how intimidating, was always the right choice. In the grand scheme of things, the confrontation wasn't about proving strength or seeking validation. It was about integrity, standing tall in the face of adversity for what truly mattered. Michael's story is a powerful testament to resilience, preparation, and the importance of choosing courage over fear. His calm determination amidst chaos is a lesson for all of us. True strength isn't about size, intimidation, or brute force. It's about recognizing your worth, staying grounded, and acting with dignity and conviction. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on your own life. Think about the times when you faced difficult situations or witnessed someone else in need of support. How can you stand up for what's right, whether for yourself or for others? Remember, courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means doing what's right despite feeling afraid. It's about standing firm, even when the odds seem stacked against you. If Michael's journey inspired you, don't forget to leave a like on this video. Share it with someone who might need a reminder of their own inner strength. And, of course, subscribe to our channel for more stories that uplift and motivate. Because sometimes, it's not the loudest voices that make the biggest impact. It's the quiet resolve of those who act with purpose and heart.